Hello everyone, this is Lord Cucumber. Okay, so you might be wondering, why am I looking at a screenshot of Fallout 1? Well, let me tell you. As some of you may or may not know, I am into programming these days. I'm becoming a programming specialist as far as I'm concerned, and I intend to also do some indie game development in the long term. Actually, that's what I long to do, if you will. I've got this weird effect running through my screen. Hold on. Deselect. There we go. It's because of the software I'm running to actually show you guys this. Anyway, I'm going to talk about isometric RPGs. I want, at some point of my career, I want to do an isometric RPG because I really loved isometric RPGs back in the day when they were the thing, such as the case was with Fallout 1. And Baldur's Gate, I believe, also had some isometric viewpoints. I'm not sure. Maybe that was all top-down. I don't recall how that was done exactly. Anyway, this is the deal with isometric RPGs. You basically have a top-down view at an angle, and then it also twists round. Basically, if you were to place squares here, you wouldn't be able to. You'd be placing diamonds, so like that. Basically, if you take one of the tiles, like the one this guy is standing on, it would sort of look like this. Hold on. There we go. That's just really rough sketching it. But that would be one of the tiles on the ground, like a diamond. And one of the tricky things when you're programming with diamonds really is the thing is that if you want to make like a thing like a hitbox, for instance, it becomes fairly complex to do that. Normally, if you have a top-down view with like a regular square, you simply say to the mouse, you're either in the square or out of the square, like in the square or out of the square, and then if a tile highlights or not. If you want to make a nice highlight around that tile when the mouse is over it. I hope you can follow what I'm saying here. But if you've ever played an isometric RPG, you know what I'm talking about. If you select a square where you want to go, for instance, with the mouse, or you want to trace a path towards a certain square where you're not, where your character is not, you can walk there in a combat phase, for instance, is highlighted somehow. And the thing is, that if you mouse over a diamond, it's very difficult to program to make that highlight unless you make it react to the actual graphic of the tile. I didn't want to do that because I want, if I'm going to do isometric RPGs, I want to do so much more with the fact that I've got my mouse over this thing and not over the thing next to it or next to it in like different directions. So I was sort of thinking to myself, how did these people do this? I'm not a mathematician, so I'm really not quite sure how you would put this in math. But I sort of figured out with my own logic how I would do it, and maybe this helps other people sort of get the whole deal. Now, if you look at if you look at a diamond, basically what you're looking at is a collection of triangles. This is very mathematical. It's not going to get very much more complex than this, but basically you're looking at 4 triangles. Now, triangles have this nice little feature to them, and that's the fact that if they are at some point a right-angled triangle, you can calculate the distance between certain points, and you know what the area will be and the parameter will be of that particular triangle. So if you look at this as a collection of triangles in one object, it becomes much more easier to figure out whether or not the mouse is inside or not, because basically you're saying, is it in one half of a rectangle, as you can see here, or in the other half? Obviously based on x and y of the mouse position. Computer has to calculate x and y, and then here we have the center right here, if I were to build an object for a diamond made out of 4 of these triangles, I would place the center right there. This would be the place where I would locate my tile on screen, like the middle of the diamond, because it's the same in every segment. So there we go. Anyway, let's look at that triangle in a little bit more detail. So here's our triangle. This is one of the pieces. It's the top left corner of the diamond. And here's X and Y again. There we go. And the center. The center of the diamond, to be exact. Now let's put some numbers to this. Now this is what I discovered. Completely separate from doing any math here. If you were to put like screen locations onto this thing, say this would be in the top left corner, or almost the top left corner of the screen. You know that the Y position starts at 0 at the top, and the X position starts at 0 at the far left of the screen. So if you were to measure this anywhere in the screen, it would be the same in pixels, except that this is easier to measure if I put it in a corner. So it's got a height of 9, as you can see, 0 to 9 right there. Screen continues here, and a width of 12, and screen continues here. So we know that this thing has a ratio of 9 divided by 12. Basically, you could say that it's got a 0.75 ratio to. Let's put that down in writing, shall we? So that we have it. That'd be great. Where's my paintbrush? Here it is. So we have this. Whoops. No, I'm editing the wrong layer. Okay. Alright, doesn't matter. There we are. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna just get back to it. There we are. I'll write it down when I'm done. So just remember that number. There we go. Let's put a mouse position inside, in this case, the triangle. So it would have lit up if I had the mouse in here. How would the computer know that the mouse position would be exactly there? Well, if you draw a line on the X, basically from the top to the bottom on this X position, the X position of 6, you can see it crosses here at 4. So that's cool. We know that. That's something we know. But for instance, if we don't know the position of the Y, because the mouse could be over here, it could be over here, it could be over here, we simply can't really tell, except the computer can. What you want to remember is that we know that this ratio, the max of this ratio, is basically inside. It's always inside if you're in this corner. It's always inside if you're at the minimum as well, if you're in this corner. So that's something to keep in mind. So how do we know whether or not it's over here, the mouse, and over here, down here? So in or out. How would we figure that out? Well, if you know the X coordinate, in this case 6, which is what we know because that's what we were looking at, you can actually multiply that 6 by 0.75. Well, it's about 5 actually. Doesn't really matter. Somewhere between 5 and 6. And you'd get a number that would equal the actual Y position in a float, because obviously depending on where this exactly is, if you put 5 in and take 75% of 5, you'd be at well, a float number. It's basically a number with a division that continues beyond the actual point. So it's not a whole number. But it's enough for the computer to know. Say, okay, so it's not the maximum, which would be 4 in this case. 6 by 4. There we go. He knows. This would be the maximum, because we can calculate that through that 0.75 thingy. So that's pretty cool. That is really neat. And I figured that out. Basically, you can just forget about the whole deal on this side. You don't need it. Just forget about this. Oopsie daisy. Come on. I'm trying to paint here. So there we go. This is not important anymore. What you've got left is a smaller triangle with the same ratio. So now the maximum is over here, which used to be over here. Pretty neat. And if you simply make that maximum into like a number that continually changes with wherever the mouse pointer is in this triangle, you will know whether or not it's inside or outside. This is outside, this is inside. There we go. And now if you do that for the whole object, basically for the whole 4 segments, you'd be good. So that's how I would do it, at least. There's probably an easier way, and there's probably a way that involves math. But as you know, math is not my strong point. So I just had to figure this out by myself. What is the constant along this line? And that's that ratio. That ratio, the 9 divided by 12, it doesn't change. This number stays the same no matter where you are. It stays the same because the distance in units changes. However, it changes in the same ratio every single time, no matter where you are. If you stay on that line, if you deviate from that line, you go over the line, you're outside or you're inside. It doesn't matter. If you make a line here, it's the same deal. You're outside or you're inside or you cross it. So that's how I figured it out. Maybe if you're out there and you're thinking, how would I do this? This might help you. Obviously, these numbers will change if you change the way this thing is built up. If you're making this like a much flatter square like this, you'd have a, what is it? A 4 by what is it? 12 kind of ratio. 4 divided by 12. But still, you'd still be fine with that calculation. So again, I hope this was clear, and I hope this helped you if you're into this sort of thing and you wanted to build this thing for so long, for so many years. I have. I'm just really excited to get started. I've already made a formula. The reason I'm not using any coding in this particular video is because I could do it in Java, I could do it in C#. It would sort of look the same, but it would get very technical and maybe somewhat confusing depending on what you're used to. I'd make an object, as I said, with several parameters, several parts even, that are more or less the same. Obviously, you would have to also change the way the calculation works depending on how the triangle is situated. But probably there's an easy way to do that by making certain things negative or positive, or, and that's probably what I would do, making the distance, the changed distance, basically the changed measurements, absolute numbers. That's always positive numbers, so that you'd have always positive numbers to calculate whatever is going on in difference to what was, in the big picture, basically. Anyway, man, I was lost for words there. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for watching. Please consider leaving a like and or comment. And please also subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you again. Cheers.